coming out here, and what I do for a living is talk sports. And that's what I'm excited to do right now. Obviously, two of the main teams here out of the three, and the biggest story right now is the Cleveland Browns. And obviously, they're 2-2. I know, hey, I was at Cavs Media Day yesterday, right? Meeting all the new players and the new coaching staff, and I started the show by talking Browns, live from Cleveland Clinic Courts, because obviously the Browns are a big story here, but so are the Cavs. What do you guys think about just the start, and we'll start with the Browns, of their season? They're 2-2 right now and the top of the AFC North.
Yeah, it's been an interesting start of the season for sure. It's unusual, at least in my time there, to come into the season with such high expectations. And so there have been a lot of real highs and lows. The fans so excited for the opener, and then the game didn't turn out well. And then you see the frustration and the anger. And then we go into the Jets game and win by 20 points. But looking at the fan reaction after that, you wouldn't have thought.
The post-game show. It was like a loss. It really was. A lot of people were angry, and I'm like, the Browns won by 20, and everybody was upset.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's it's an interesting time. The good part is it's all good, but there's so much passion around it, around the team, that it's never a dull moment. It's a fun time.
Now, Damian, I know you work for the Cavs. Are you a Browns fan as well?
Growing up in Western New York, it was kind of tough. So,
okay.
We were Bills fans early on, but the Bills were so terrible. When I grew up, I became a Colts fan because of Eric Dickerson. So we're tied in the South right now with the Titans and the Texans and the Jaguars. So Andrew Luck leaving hurt a little bit, but yeah, I follow the Browns as well because you know what? Being here in Cleveland, the rising tide raises all ships. So we're very happy and supportive to see them do well because when they do well, we do well.
Yeah.
Same with the Indians.
Yeah, I was going to bring up the Indians too. They've won 90-plus games over the past 4 years, and I think it helps everybody in the city when the sports teams are doing well. How do the Cavaliers feed off of the energy from the Browns fans?
We love it. I mean, we're bringing engaged fans into our downtown area. They get to have a chance to see our building. They get to see our brand, and we're just happy to be working with the other sports teams in the area to kind of help be supportive in their efforts.
Jeremy, what's the energy in the building like right now out there in Berea?
Yeah, it's great. I mean, again, people are excited. It's a different atmosphere than in years past in that we have different business challenges now. It's a full building, so now it's all about how do we perfect the fan experience? How do we get fans even more engaged, more excited? And hopefully the team continues on an upward progression and just keep the momentum going.
Now, do you guys have, for each of the teams, a favorite athlete to work with? Someone's that maybe they're the most accommodating player that you have? Is there anybody that sticks out to your mind that's really fun to work with and probably the easiest?
So I don't directly work with the players, but part of our goal is to connect the players with the fans. So we like to humanize them in any aspect that we can. So we do that largely through our digital channels, and we expose the base to those folks to humanize them, to make them relevant and believable as real human beings.
Yes. How about you?
Yeah. So the easy answer is Baker, right? Anything we put out with Baker, the fans eat it up.
Right.
That's almost too easy, though. So then we like to look at the really good storylines or the human interest stories. So when you have guys like Jamie Gillan, our new punter, the Scottish Hammer, somebody with an interesting background who came from an unlikely background to make the team, and the fans have really rallied behind him. And so identifying athletes and storylines like that are really good, and we see good success with that.
I'm sure the more personality the athletes have, the more it helps you. How do you approach your job from a day-to-day basis, whether the team wins or lose? How does that affect what you guys do?
You know what? At the end of the day, we're still the C. We're still the brand. So, there are highs and lows, there are ebbs and flows. I've been with Cavaliers now almost 18 years. So I've seen the ugly, the good, the bad, the ugly, the great, and now we're you don't ever want to live in those peaks and valleys. You kind of want to, you want to go across the middle all the time. So we like to employ tactics and strategies that keep the fans engaged and keep our brand at a level pace.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. For instance, I previously worked for the Pittsburgh Penguins when we won a Stanley Cup, and I was with the Browns when we were 0-16. So I've seen the two extreme ends of the spectrum, and the reality is you still have to do your job every day,
right,
whether you're in first place or last place. So while you may tweak the strategy a little bit, you still want to connect with that fan base. And we always talk about fans. The word fan itself, it's short for fanatic. These are people who are extremely passionate about what you're doing. And even during tough times, the Browns fans still were really passionate. They did not become apathetic. And you'll see that in some markets that aren't nearly as strong of sports markets. And that's what you don't ever want. An angry fan is much better than an apathetic fan.
Yeah, we have a rule in broadcasting, and definitely on our show, we want an A or an F. We either want the best of the best or the worst of the worst, because it'll evoke a reaction.
Right.
If the Browns lose, if they get blown out, it's better for us than a close loss. If the Cavaliers have a high draft pick that's underperforming, as bad as it sounds, it helps our content. If they have a guy that's just doing average,
right,
people don't want to talk about it.
Right.
And our job is to talk about what people want to talk about. Now, with you guys doing digital media, I'm part of the archaic media, right? The old school radio side of it. Do you guys look at radio and TV as competition? Do you look at the other teams in the city as competition?
Obviously, no. Honestly, no. Again, we feed off of each other. So if we see that the Browns are doing well, we look to find out what their practices are and how they're strategizing to do that. I have to say, from a league level, we do that really well as well. There's a best practice sharing. We spend time with the Indians as well to find out kind of how they do what they do. And it could be from a social perspective, it can be from a software perspective. We share practices. We like to help each other out.
Yeah, and I'd say, from a fan engagement perspective or digital media, I don't, it's rising tide raises all ships. I guess where there could be some competition on the business side is perhaps on the sponsorship side, where there's only so much sponsorship dollars within a city to go around. So perhaps from that perspective, but probably from our day-to-day roles, it's much more collaborative than competitive.
I think it's similar.
Now, I'm sure what few of the people in here, and myself included, what's a typical day like for you two gentlemen?
So I'm our Senior Director of Emerging Technology, and what I do is I look at new tech and how it applies to our business. And as you all know or may not know, technology changes second to second, minute to minute, day by day. So I'm constantly learning how new features, functions of technology can impact us on a business side, as well as oftentimes on the team side. So I meet with vendors, prospective vendors, partners who can help us out. I do a technical write-up of what their services, features, functions, costs, about their business, an overview of who they are, and along with any documentation that they supply me. Could be a sizzle reel, links, videos, decks, and then I look to see where there may be a fit for that in our organization. So then I send that around to those teams and say, hey guys, here's a new mobile app that does X. Hey finance team, here's a new software that might help you with budgeting. Hey team, there's a guy with a sodium bicarbonate lotion that helps remove lactic acid from the muscles, which helps recovery. So I'll get that to the team guys and say, hey, give this a look. Let me know if you think it'll help. And this comes from folks that are established Fortune 5s. This comes from new startups. And I'd have to say that we snap in probably 30 to 40% of the folks that I vet and look at. And I do this on a proactive level and a reactive level. So I'll go around to different teams within the organization and I ask them how tech might help them ease some of their pain points. So I meet with them quarterly and I develop a list of business requirements and I go and I see if they're already existing within my book of vendors or if I need to go talk to someone else. And then I also do it reactively. So I get a lot of calls and emails from folks that are looking to sell me product. Because there was a thought back in the day that typical products that work for normal business and the normal industry didn't really apply to sports because sports has always been a passionate business. But when you're in those low points, you need to be smarter and more intelligent with how you continue to operate. So a lot of folks realize that and say, hey, you know what, this widget would probably work for a sports team. And there's a lot more awareness around that from businesses. So our C-level, our V-level guys within the offices don't necessarily always have the time to listen to a pitch or sit through a presentation or can translate the opportunity. So that became my role. And I have to say I'm one of the only 30 within the NBA that does this.
Now, with you said technology changing second by
Yes.
second. How difficult is it to make sure you make all the right moves with the new technology? Because sometimes things come out and it completely flops.
Right. And that's where the vetting comes out. So I present them to the different teams within the organization, and then we sit down and we make a collective decision, right? And if it flops, we flop together. But the diligence that we put in is almost bulletproof, where we don't see the flop.
And Jeremy, how about you? What's a typical day for you?
Yeah, so I work more on the interactive and the marketing side. So within our department is essentially everything web, mobile, social, anything with the screen that can somehow interact with a fan, as well as a lot of our advertising. So a typical day for me is trying to build out digital strategies across our different platforms. So it may be, for instance, we had a meeting this morning, taking a look at the previous week and the previous game day across all of our content channels and social platforms, and seeing what we can learn in terms of what went well, what content did best, which, how can we adjust for next week. I spent a lot of time working on digital analytics. Again, just trying to better understand trends and then helping to take that information ultimately to make better programming decisions, and then also to help on the business side with monetization as well. So we'll work very closely with our corporate partnership team to try to align partner brands with all of our digital platforms. So a lot of that.
Now, and I want both you guys to answer this question, but we'll start with you. How do you measure success? Like, I had a good day today. How do you measure success?
It's a good question. So we have a lot of different KPIs that we track, across the board, across the company, but in particular in digital. Everything is measurable, and that's good and bad at the same time, because you can become overwhelmed with following every statistic. But we have this is kind of a general philosophy within our department. It's everything that we do from a digital perspective. We want to either inform our fans, entertain our fans, or drive some business initiative. So I view us as having a successful day when we're hitting those buckets, and ideally with everything we're doing, hitting multiple of those buckets. So if it's a piece of, if it's a YouTube video, is it informative? Is it entertaining? Does it have a partner incorporated with it? Okay, wow, that seems to be a really good, that's a win right there for us.
And how about you, Damien?
I think it's smiles on faces. So you take a look at, the corner of Huron and Ontario. We just completed a nearly $200 million renovation on the Rocket Mortgage Fieldhouse. And Saturday for the grand opening, we had over 27,000 folks come through that building just to check it out. And it is really a state-of-the-art facility, and we didn't take the easy road on it. The more expensive, easier road would to have built a new facility, but we took an existing 25-year-old building and we ripped and replaced and made it state-of-the-art, so it's plug and play for any venue, show, or act that comes through there. So the folks that come through that look and are in awe, we had our opening event last night with Black Keys and Modest Mouse. The folks that came in and just the time that they spend at some of the engagement pieces that we put together. We've got over 100 pieces of new art from local artists that we put in. The building is really, really new. We've touched basically every inch of that building for our fans, and that's really what how we gauge our success. And even bigger, I'd be remiss if I didn't talk about our chairman, our ownership group, and Dan Gilbert. A lot of that transcends from him and his vision and his willingness to build a championship culture. And you saw in 2016 we were able to accomplish. And that hasn't changed. Despite a player coming or going, like I said, we're still the seed, right? And we're going to continue to be committed to the city, the people of the city, and putting that culture in place.
A lot of new technology in that building. Yeah. How much of that were you involved in, and what type of experience was it?
Yeah, so I learned a ton. Right, my background, I'm a dinosaur in the industry. I've been around since '95. I worked 3 years with the Buffalo Sabres, 3 years with the Tampa Bay Lightning. I came to the Cavaliers in '02, and that for the purpose of database marketing, automating our sales team, putting systems in place to track their efforts. I spent a lot of time there, grew into business intelligence, data analytics. 3 years ago, joined our digital and IT team because I've been doing a lot of things for our sales and marketing teams in terms of getting new tech placed within our areas. And I caught the eye of our CIO, who brought me onto the team for this current position. I've been exposed to a lot of new things. And again, it's rapidly changing. Going back to Dan and Quicken Loans, you take a look at Rocket Mortgage. Who would have thought that on your phone you could press a button and have a mortgage offer in 15 minutes? Right. That's technology. Mm-hmm. We're really a tech company that sells mortgages, right? That funnels off into another 120 family of companies of which the Cavaliers are a part of. So from a process standpoint, I came in late on the planning for the renovation. So I was thrown into the mix on reviewing features and functionalities of all this new tech, reviewing contracts that hold the owners to a certain scope of work or statement of work. So learning a lot of legal terms on stuff I really didn't. So it was really kind of like a high dive for me to be able to get into a lot of this and learn about it. Mm-hmm. Again, an eye-opening experience. I know about RS-232 feeds and 6mm direct LEV direct.
So you know all of this stuff right here, right?
So if you've driven down Huron in Ontario and you've seen our three-story totem, mm-hmm. It's one of a kind. It's one of one in the world. You look at our power portal. Has anyone been to the Rocket Mortgage Fieldhouse in the last? If you go through our power portal and you check that out, it's one of one. It is a 2.6mm direct view LED. We've got over 30 million pixels in a 60-foot long, 30-foot high, 40-foot wide power tunnel that has environmental audio. So as you're walking through it, you can literally program any type of content where you've got Kevin Love knocking on top and saying, "Hey, you, welcome to the game."
Oh, wow.
Or we're filling it up with basketballs, or at some point, Ohio lottery balls. So mm-hmm. It's a piece of, it's a canvas. It's a canvas that we can utilize for whatever purpose.
And Jeremy, one of the, I heard Damian say he gets a lot of support from Dan Gilbert. What is the support like from the Haslams and just the organization overall for just what you need to accomplish your job every day?
Yeah, absolutely. We get a tremendous amount of support. I think as a whole, we are put in a position to be successful, yeah. And that's a great place to start from. Being in a league like the NFL, where it's so big and so visible, we're fortunate in that there are resources and opportunities that help us to do our job better. So it's probably a lot different than working at a small company where the budget may be tight, mm-hmm. and of course we have budgets, everybody does, but at the end of the day, if something makes sense and we can make the case for it, then it's well received.
And one of the things about technology, at least to me, I think of it's a young man's game or young people. Technology is a young people thing, right? TikTok came out. I don't know what it is. I don't know how to use it. I don't know what to do. How do you make sure your content and your job, what you do, is age proof? Because I'm sure, I've seen, older people try to pull up something on their phone, they get frustrated. Well, if you have something around the queue that's a high technology, state-of-the-art situation, if you have content that's out there, how do you make it age-proof so that everybody can enjoy it?
Well, we kind of live by a rule that any content that we put out there should be understandable by a 10-year-old child or a 90-year-old grandmother. So we make it simple. We have we base a lot of our philosophy on what Dan calls the isms, and one of them is keep it simple, right? We don't want to make anything too complex, too many buttons, too many steps to purchase a ticket to attend an event. We make it very simple. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I agree with that completely. With anything that we do across digital, you've got such a short window of attention span. When somebody is on their phone, they're probably already doing 5 things at once on the phone, and there's probably a TV on, and somebody's probably talking to them, and you've got a split second to capture somebody's attention, and you've got to keep things simple. I always use the saying to my team, like, would my mom understand this and know immediately what to do? My mom's just a nice, normal lady. Just if she wouldn't get it within 2 seconds, then it's too just,
and she's probably not coming back. If you go to a website, it's too hard to navigate. I'm not going to that website anymore.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's the thing. We're not necessarily competing for revenue, right? We're not trying to get in pockets. We just want a shred of your time. With the world today, second by second, screens, things that are going on in your life, your Outlook's going off, you're getting tweets, you're getting, thank you guys for being here and being captive for this amount of time. So you only have that shred just to make them think later, oh man, I need to get Cavs tickets. Oh, doggone, I got to pick Johnny up a shirt. So we're really competing for time. And that's not just us. That's Procter & Gamble. That's NBC Nightly News.
That's me.
That's everywhere. Right. We want a little bit of your time.
Right.
We want to keep you top of mind.
Right. It's as I kind of sit and think about the competition of media, and you said something. You said we're not really trying to make money. You can though. Right. Off of what you do. How do you guys use what you do to make a profit?
So for us, it's fan engagement first, right? Everything that I do, it's to engage our fans. We have an extremely loyal fan base. The only second to what I believe is where I grew up in Buffalo, right? The Bills, Sabres have never won. I was there close with the no-goal game back in 97. 97. Extremely packed. You saw it in 2016. We had 1.5 million people come out, right? Our parade didn't look like Toronto's parade, and they had won it for the first time for the whole country. Like ours blew that away. And that is from folks since 1970. We're in our 50th year this year, being passionate about what we put on the floor.
And how about you, Jeremy?
Yeah, in terms of generating revenue, so the more eyeballs we get on what we're producing, the more opportunity there is to align with a partner brand. So that's one angle. There's also direct revenue, in particular in years past when we were trying to drive ticket sales. So all of our advertising, data collection efforts, trying to funnel information into our sales reps, that's one way as well. And even now using technology as we move forward, the transition to mobile ticketing, for instance. That's been a big initiative across the NFL. And that relies on technology, but it lives within our apps, the apps that we are responsible for promoting, for programming, for designing. So all of those ways, ultimately, every digital touch point we have has the opportunity to drive some business initiative.
And social media is huge in the digital world. How do you guys either use social media, or how does it affect what you do?
It is what we do. That social is where the eyeballs are. It's how we can promote content. It's how people consume content. It's how we share news. It's you think about it in football in particular, we have, 8 regular season home games a year, 16 games every year. That's a very small window of time when there is actual football being played. We are active in communicating and engaging our fan base 365 days a year. So while the games are obviously the most important days, we've got to be active throughout the year, and that's where social in particular is so relevant.
Yeah, and how about you, Damien? Do you hear?
Same thing. Yeah, it's almost like fishing, right? How many lines can you put in the water, right? That are going to help you pull back results. And again, the results aren't always revenue. It's that share of voice. It's a share of time. It's to get someone to read an article, to click, to open, to visit your website, to watch a video. So social's a part of a bigger ecosystem of all of our marketing channels and all of our brand channels that we have out there. So it's been very, very successful because of that screen and that phone. and the prevalence of folks that use mobile devices, it's easier to get information in the hands really, really quick. But we're not out there for highlights and scores and schedules. We're out there, again, to show the humanness of our players and connect our players and our brand with people.
And social media can be a great place.
Sure.
It can be a terrible place as well.
Yeah.
How do you differentiate constructive criticism from your consumer and your fans to just trolls being trolls?
Right. Well, we've got a very, very good PR team in place that handles any of that type of noise, we like to call it. So if folks, tend to go off, we've got folks that are able to deal with that effectively. But again, like you said,
Tad is very good, by the way.
Tad,
Yeah.
he runs our PR team, and he's been, again, I started with Tad back in 02. Tad came on a little bit after me, and so again, he's been through the ups and downs and the gamut, and he's built that muscle memory in how to deal with these things. So you're gonna have your A's and F's, like you said. You're gonna have some of the folks in the middle. It's just how you deal with that public and how you engage them to continue to keep your brand positive.
And how about you, Jeremy?
Yeah, I'd say one of the challenges is everybody's got a megaphone on social, right? And everybody has a strong opinion on social, and obviously there's a lot of passionate feelings, positive and negative, that take place. One of the things that I like to tell our social team is get a feel for the room. Read the comments, but don't take them personally. You've got to be able to separate yourself from somebody behind a keyboard who wants to, beat on his chest and act tough.
Right.
So even during tough times, we still have a job to do, and we need to be aware and be sensitive to what the fan perspective is at that time. But we also don't want to hide. We still are a brand, a proud brand. We still have a voice that we need to put forth even during tough times. So, being confident to put that post out or that tweet after a tough loss is something that we just have to do. But we want to be strategic about how we do it.
How do you handle, I have a chance to be funny, versus maybe I shouldn't? Tweet that joke or something like that, because it used to be 140 characters a rope. It's like 2 something now. How do you handle that? Because you got to be careful on social media.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the interesting things with across sports, and I'm sure across all brands as well, is oftentimes the people running the social accounts are the most junior level employees in the company because they're closest to the platforms and the technology. That doesn't necessarily equate to the most experience, though. So what we do in any situation like that is let's just talk through it. Don't do anything on impulse. Let's talk through it. And when issues or if we're a little bit uncertain, then we take it up a level and maybe raise it even one level higher if it's something that we're really on the fence about whether or not it's appropriate or might get us in trouble or it's a little bit too aggressive. Yeah, absolutely. So we've got a structure in place and good trust within the organization among the different departments, from the content side to the PR side to the football side to the ownership. So as long as there's that trust and that communication, we feel pretty confident that we can land in the right spot.
So before a post is posted to social media, how many people have seen it before send is hit?
Yeah, for us, if your typical everyday tweet, really just one person, the person, our social media coordinator. When it starts to get a little bit, well, let's say, for instance, it's something that has a partner integration. Okay, that's not necessarily sensitive, but there are other players in the room. So that's where we pull in our activation team. Sometimes we have to get the partner themselves to sign off on how their logo is incorporated or the verbiage we use or how we're tagging them in the post. Yeah. So that's one level up. And then when it becomes things like you're saying, kind of the funny or the kind of getting a little bit, away from your day-to-day, we generally have, I'd say, probably 3 people that weigh in. And every once in a while, we can get 4, 5, 6 if it's depending on how.
If Jimmy Haslam gets involved, it's probably not a good thing, right? If Dan Gilbert sees it, it's probably
want to be deep in the weeds.
Yeah, don't want to go too far.
Dan himself is really deep on the tweets. So
you
follow Cavs Dan.
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
Well, I definitely
he's
do.
a very busy tweeter.
Yeah. You brought up PR, and we spoke backstage, and you brought up the great PR staff with the Browns. How do you guys work together? Is it an everyday thing? Is it just when there's a question? How closely do you guys work with the PR staffs?
Our PR team centers mostly around the team, so I'm not very close to that in their process, but we've got, I want to say 13 folks, and then our social channel is another 5 or 6, and then we've got a digital team behind that of another 4 or 5. So they work very collaboratively to make sure that information about the team is getting out there. Now, we do have different segments, so we have marketing channels that will promote and send tweets out. Same with our ticket sales or our Wine and Gold United, our service team. So we have another ism that says the camera's always on. So we always just need to be mindful of what we say and what we do and how we act, even as private citizens when we go home, and even on our own personal social channels. People still associate us with those teams, and you still work for the Cavs. So I can't go off on a trade or a decision because I still represent that. We are the they.
Yeah, quick story about that. When I was a part-timer at ESPN Cleveland. It was a late Friday night. My brother-in-law tweeted something. I said, hey, that's pretty funny. I hit retweet. Yeah. I walked in on a Monday morning, and our program director said, I need to see you. I said, absolutely. It can be, I've never been in trouble before. So I sat down, like, what's going on? He opens up an email from the CEO of our company with my tweet embedded in there.
Wow.
There was a curse word in the tweet that I hadn't seen.
Wow.
And I was told, listen, this is a free country. You can tweet whatever it is you like, but if you're going to work for us, you cannot tweet profanity, and if you do again, you will no longer have this position. Yeah. And I haven't tweeted a curse word since. And that was about 10 years ago. So how close do you guys work with the PR staff?
Yeah, every day. It's an everyday process and relationship. With most teams, the PR staff is they're controlling and helping to make the narrative of what are the storylines that we want to tell. And they have so much information, behind the scenes information, and they can help us pursue an angle on a story, or highlight a player that perhaps the coaches really want to draw some attention to. So it's imperative to have a good relationship with the PR department, as they have so much information and so much access to the players.
Well, what are the guidelines that you guys use in your job from day to day? Some of the do's and don'ts as well.
I think, at least for the Cavaliers and Rocket Mortgage Fieldhouse organization, we have a very good culture. We know that, we work hard, we play hard, and we're there. And I joke with a lot of my coworkers. I'm like, you have become my family because I spend more time with you eventually than I do my wife and children. I'm here 8, 10, 12. This last week, 2 weeks, opening up the Fieldhouse, I'm looking at 17-hour, 18-hour days on average. And, my kids are like, who are you?
Who are you, right?
So, it's embedded in our culture that, you treat each other with respect and you have a good time. We're not on the front lines. We're not, brain surgeons. We work for a basketball team. And not just basketball, but we've got the Canton Charge down in Canton. So we got a G League team. We've got the AHL Cleveland Monsters. So we've got a hockey team. We've got over 200 events a year that come through that building. So, we represent all the events. Starting Thursday, we got Walking with Dinosaurs or Jurassic World that's coming in. And then we roll right into our first preseason game into hockey. So, we spend a lot of time there, and it's a grind. A lot of folks think that, oh, it must be so fun. People ask me all the time, and I laugh. They're like, do you stick around for the games? I'm like, no. I don't have to. I said, do you stay at your job? Right?
Yeah.
So,
I actually get, people ask me, like, when the last time you've been to a game? I'm like, I'm at every game.
Yeah,
Right. Yeah, I have this, if every day's a sunny day, what's a sunny day?
It's a sunny day.
When me going to the ballpark, the arena, the field house rather, or First Energy Stadium, that's where that's where I work, where everyone else is having their leisure time and enjoying it. Right. It's when we work.
Right. And speaking of that, so me with my preference to be home on the 65 4K TV, we realize that there are also fans there, right?
Right.
We realize that we're only catching the 1% that come down to our building, right? So how do we affect the other 99? right? How do we broadcast? How do we radio? How do we put that out on digital? We did a study last year that identified the largest consumer of our Cavs.com online videos is from the Philippines.
Really?
What?
Wow.
Philippines,
Yeah.
right? Not Canada, they like the Philippines. So, we're looking to dig into why? What makes our athletes so popular in the Philippines?
Yeah, that's a good question.
Yeah.
What are some of the guidelines and stuff that you have?
Well, I would say just kind of along those lines a little bit with the TVs at home. The NFL in particular is such a great sport to view on from your couch on the high-def TV. So that is great for TV viewership, but it also presents some urgency for how do we make the in-venue experience still even superior to that.
Yeah.
Because the last thing you want is an empty stadium with huge TV ratings. You want both.
Right.
You want a full stadium and the TV ratings. So that's an interesting, an ongoing evolution of how do we continue to make that in-venue experience is worthwhile for every fan to still want to come down every game and be there.
Now, as I look at the two teams, I look at the Browns, they have some superstars. Obviously, Odell Beckham Jr., Baker Mayfield, feel like he's a superstar in the making. You look at the Cavaliers, you have a lot of young guys. Kevin Love's definitely an all-star.
Right.
He's a star. But a lot of young guys who we don't know what they will become.
Right.
How do you manage telling those stories? Because they're two different kind of stories.
I think it's really impactful by the way they play and how they produce on the court. And then through our efforts to connect them with the community, I think that raises their brand as well, right? And they've got guidelines. Players, athletes, just over the last, 10 years or so, have realized that they are a brand, right? Hey, wait a minute. Through collective bargaining agreements, you know what? I should get paid for a bobblehead. I don't need to sign balls. I'm going to start my own autographed jersey business, right? So a lot of players have kind of had this awakening where they thought back in the day it was mandated by the team for them to do, but now because of CBA agreements, they say, no, I can now share in the revenues on my own. So they put themselves out there, and so they've got their own social media guys. They got their own video crews and people that are helping them promote what they're doing.
I saw Jordan Clarkson yesterday walking around with a camera crew and his own guys.
You become your own brand.
Right.
And I think you go back to Jay-Z. He said, I'm a businessman. So, and that's what a lot of these guys are looking at.
Yeah, and how about you?
Yeah, it's interesting too. In particular, with the superstar athletes, they often do have their own marketing firms and their own reps, and they're very conscientious about how they are portrayed and which partners they're aligned with. So that that's an important part of our everyday as well, making sure not only do we put everybody in the best light that we can, but being aware of all the factors at play with all the stakeholders in the room.
Now, if you can't answer this question, I understand, but something just clicked because I thought about brands and athletes having their own brand. Odell Beckham Jr., obviously huge star. The watch, right? Wear a $500,000 watch on. Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, it was about a $500,000 watch on. That was the story, right? We talked about it for a few days, on my radio show and on many radio shows. Did you guys ever consider doing anything like that or about that on social media, or was that more of a hey guys, let's just kind of let that go away?
Well, the interesting thing is it was the initial thing that sparked that conversation was a photograph that our photographer took that we posted on social, us not thinking anything of the watch itself.
Right.
And then people started talking about it and it snowballed and became a story. So that's a perfect example of a conversation that we would have with our PR department. Hey, what's the right approach that we want to take with this? Is this an area where it's going to benefit our brand or the player to step in here? Or should we kind of step back, let the outside media do whatever it is, cover it however they want, and let us focus on kind of the other team storylines? And that's the approach that we chose to take. We obviously, if we were only interested in clicks, Sure, that would be an easy one to go. We could have a full photo gallery of every different watch you'd wear. You know.
Right.
But ultimately, we're responsible to the brand and the company as a whole, and we have to do what's right. Not just strictly looking at what will get the most clicks.
And let's talk about clicks, right? Because I mean that's how you measure. You know, that's how you measure things. When a video is posted or a picture, the caption, I've heard people accuse the media of not having fair headlines. How much thought and how much time goes into what the caption says when there is a piece of media posted really anywhere?
Yeah, well, yeah, I mean, a lot. You know, so our content team is very aware of, you know, that it's not just the video or the photo that's the content. It's every piece of that post, of that story, the headline. It's all part of it. It all has to tell the story that we want to tell. So, yeah, absolutely. And probably more of the conversation that we'll have is how, you know, I don't want to say clickbaity, but like how creative do we want to get with this headline that might leave people just curious enough that they want to click? You know, what's the right amount
Not
of
totally disingenuous, you know, but finesse it a little bit, absolutely.
Yeah, so I mean, those are kind of the fun strategic conversations that we have. You know, we want people to click, but we also don't want to become clickbait.
Right. How do you guys?
I'm not really close to the process, so I can't speak to it.
So, yeah, plead
I'm
the
sure
fifth,
that
right?
there's a strategy. I just certainly can't talk too much about it because I don't know.
Yeah,
honestly.
nice. Now, we'd love to open it up to anybody that has any questions for us. Do we have any questions here? Yeah, yes, sir.
Help you. Well, I wish I had a great answer for you. You know, the good thing about the NFL is that you can go from bad to good quickly, and I think that's part of what makes it exciting. It really has become a week-to-week league. So times may be tough now, and you know, we even look at the Browns. 0-16 2 seasons ago. A lot of people are expecting playoffs this year. Hopefully that happens. I mean, that's a tremendous turnaround, and that's part of what makes the league exciting, and why events like the NFL Draft have become so popular, because it is possible to turn your team around so quickly with some good moves.
Yeah, we have some questions on social media too, some digital questions, if you will. You can tweet at JMC Brands, and Kay and Shay have a question. They say, how can small businesses better support and capitalize on sports teams in order to attract clients and customers?
So you know what I do, right? I investigate companies that might be able to help us. So I'll send my card out or put my email address up there. If you want to engage with me, I'll gladly look at your product or your feature and see how it might be able to fit us. But what I would recommend is, if you're a fan and if you're looking to support us, invest in the team, right? Buy season tickets, bring your employees out to a group night, and then through that process, find ways that we can better assist you as well, whether it's a charitable offering, whether it's helping a school refurbish a court. We have a very, very deep community relations team that looks to put our links back into the community to help this Cleveland community.
And
yeah, and I would say if you kind of take it a step further, looking at the sponsorship or partnership side, you know, there's a lot of data out there that shows the brand lift that companies get by associating with NFL or with professional sports teams across the board. There's a real power behind the logo, behind any team's logo, and that's you know, because they're so identifiable and there's so much passion with the fans of those teams that you see positive benefits, and they're very measurable whenever brands are aligned like that.
And I can even say, you know, personally, working in radio and all of our advertising partners, which we do have digital advertising partners as well, they're all really happy right now. And that's because the Cleveland Browns are good. So there are a lot of ears on our station. There are a lot of eyes on our Twitter, our Instagram, our Snapchat. So it's a good time for businesses to be around the sport, all the teams, really, the Indians and as well as the Cavs having the new building and everything. It's just a good time to kind of latch on to the teams in the outlets, the various sports outlets.
Yeah, I would say too, probably a perfect example of that is if you have any NASCAR fans and how brand loyal they are based upon the brands associated with that driver. It's very, very identifiable.
Yeah, no question.
Yeah,
no question
sports marketing works. Mm-hmm. I'm glad it does. I wouldn't have a job if it didn't.
Me either. Yeah. So I totally understand that. We have another question here from social media. Can Baker Mayfield surpass LeBron in popularity here in Northeast Ohio? Actually, I got this one covered, guys. He already has. Wow. He did last year after winning 7 games. And I know that sounds ridiculous. It actually is ridiculous, but he has. He has, and I say that with a lot of confidence because it was always fair to critique LeBron James, right? If I got on the radio and I said LeBron had a terrible night, turned the ball over, wasn't showing much energy, whatever, I didn't get much pushback from fans. I got some fans, maybe not. Some like, yeah, that's right, Emmett. Baker Mayfield threw 3 interceptions in a game last year, and I tweeted, Baker, you can't turn the ball over 3 times and expect to beat a good team. I had hundreds of tweets, telling me that I was going to run Baker Mayfield out of town. We finally got a good quarterback, and he's going to run because, and get away from all this because we're not being nice to him. So I know it sounds crazy because LeBron James has won a title in this town, but right now, today, Baker Mayfield is more popular in Cleveland than LeBron James really ever was. I want to thank you guys for spending this time and thank the audience. You guys have been really, really good. Thank you very much.
Yeah, good stuff. That's great. Yeah.
It's good hanging out with you.
Fun chatting.